Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the rebel's path to consistency. In this episode, I'm going to give you 3 takeaways at the end to help you directly apply what we talk about today in your leadership. And every single week, I give you a new episode, bringing you great content to be able to help you tap into your hidden potential as a leader with practical and ideological tools. Let's go ahead and get started with a big thought, and that is many times in early leadership, we want to break the status quo by shaking things up, and we feel ambitious and determined as we set on making a difference as a new leader. But it's easy for that passion to fizzle out once things don't necessarily go according to plan, when things don't necessarily change and the people around us are more irritated by us than grateful for us. Today we're going to talk about the power of consistency and how it should be the foundation to keep you grounded amongst opposition in those difficult times. Consistency helps you to endure when it seems like nothing is changing and nothing is working. The reason that this topic is so important to talk about is because many leaders are doing the right things, or at least trying to, but doubt themselves when they don't see the results and they give up prematurely. I want to help you to see the light at the end of the tunnel by showing you the strength and connection of consistency with your faith. Let's start off with number 1, and that is understanding raw consistency. See, consistency is enduring the course that was set no matter what. That means when facing extreme opposition, and it means when you're facing extreme unfruitfulness. It is deciding that this is going to happen, and when it seems illogical. It's choosing to rebel against the grain stubbornly. And I think that for some reason we think of consistency being like this polite terminology, like showing up on time. Like, yes, showing up on time that's a consistent, great attribute to have. But see, consistently washing your hands doesn't compare to being consistently stubborn to do something even when everything is against you. And it's the idea of real consistency. It's difficult and it can make you seem crazy sometimes. That's what real raw consistency is like. See, it's staying in ministry even when you're not getting paid to be a minister. That is illogical sometimes. But being consistent, it's preparing a message even when no one has been showing up. Being consistent, it's praying for it and texting the people who still haven't even responded to you. See, consistency is the essence of living by faith and not by sight. See, I feel like in a lot of different areas for my walk right now in ministry and leadership, there's some levels that I am so grateful for. Just the other day, I was telling someone that I feel like I'm in the best place so far in my life when it comes to ministry. And that is after 6 years of starting a church from scratch, planting a church with no support, no background, no nothing. And it's been 6 years now to where I feel good about it. And that's 5 years of being consistent when it sucked. I think about even areas like I love going to and ministering at recovery centers. And it makes me think about right now, I love it, but there's been plenty of times where I'll show up and no one wants to go to the volunteer church service that I'm offering at the recovery center. There's been times where I would show up and I was praying outside for half an hour because no one wanted to go to the service. Room full of people, building full of people, but no one wanted to join. See, it's being consistent, is choosing to show up even when it seems illogical. I think one of the best examples I ever realized was one day I was washing this pan, and you may have heard this analogy before from me, but I was washing this pan of some burnt Spanish rice. And my wife, she makes amazing Spanish rice. She makes amazing food altogether, but Spanish rice, it sometimes has this knack for getting burnt and sticking onto the pan. And I'm telling you, like, I'm not a soaker, okay? I cannot leave those dishes in the sink to soak. If anything, you got about 5 minutes of soaking while I'm washing the other dishes, but that's it. This is going down today. I'm gonna wash this pan. And often when I'm scrubbing this pan, it seems like nothing is happening. And I'm talking about like, there's been times where I've been scrubbing it for 10 minutes. I'm working up a full sweat. And some of y'all might think this is just crazy. Why not just let it soak and deal with it in the morning? No, this is happening today. And so I'd be scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing. It seems like nothing is really working, that nothing is coming up, and I'm just there scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing until all of a sudden, even though it seems like nothing has been working, that there's been no change, all of a sudden it comes up. It just comes up. And it's like that. It doesn't happen like over time, like a little bit. No, it's like nothing, and then it all just comes off. And I'm telling you that sometimes leadership and ministry especially is like that, to where it seems like you're making no progress, that what you're doing is ineffective, and all of a sudden it works. All of a sudden you bear fruit. But it takes understanding that raw consistency and how much power there is to it. It leads us to understand the ripple effect of consistency. See, we don't anticipate how long something takes to actually work. We anticipate, we have an idea, but we never really anticipate accurately how long it will really take. Have you ever started a diet before and then like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds, and then you go at it, and after a week, you're like, man, nothing's happened. I've been killing myself in the gym. I haven't been eating anything. How come nothing is happening? And we never anticipate accurately how long something will actually take to work. See, we expect it to take some time, but we don't think that'll take that much time. And it's in the absence of results and through the moments of waiting in which we begin to doubt if what we thought would work is actually going to work. And you need to grasp that Rome wasn't built in a day. And in order to eat an elephant, it takes one bite at a time. What that means is you have to understand that you are creating something new in the change that you're setting out to make. And the ugliest part of building something is the beginning moments. It's laying the foundation to what you want to build. And consistency is that foundation. When you stick with it, though, you will eventually see that it wasn't for nothing. Only if you stick with it. Only if you're consistent when it doesn't make sense. In fact, you will realize that the endurance you grew at the beginning when you weren't seeing any results is what you will need. It's that strength that will carry you over into the lasting moments. It takes you to build that strength in the small moments to be able to handle the big moments. See, I think that building that consistency is a lot like laying the foundation of a building. And that's often the ugliest part. It's not cool in the sense that it doesn't look extravagant. You're digging it in the dirt. You're laying down bars and rebars, and you're setting this landscape, and all of a sudden you lay concrete. That's like the last step of laying concrete. And that's really what that consistency is. And I think the hardest part to building that foundation is waiting for the cement to dry. Because there's nothing you can do besides what you've already done. That's what consistency is just waiting for it to eventually solidify and work. And it is so hard to wait. It's so difficult to wait and wonder of whether or not it's really going to hold. But the ripple effect of consistency, it just makes this amazing foundation for you to be able to stand on. And let's talk about how we can kind of practice the idea of consistency. See, I believe that you can cultivate consistency through habits. See, we need consistency in our leadership and how we respond to people, how we show up for things. We could get really particular, but I'm giving this general essence of consistency. And in order to build that consistency, we can use habits. See, establishing good habits is a great way to build your endurance. of consistency. And consistency is this one area of life, consistency in one area of life bleeds over to the next. When you practice consistency on the small and basic levels, it will help you to sustain consistency in the higher difficult levels. For me, like I think about one of the smallest steps of consistency was like flossing. I used to say, whenever a dentist would ask me, when's the last time you flossed? I'd say, you should know, you were there. But there was one day where I decided that I can't necessarily afford health insurance all the time. I can't just afford dental work to be done. I need to take care of my teeth. And so I realized that I need to build this habit of consistency through flossing. And when I finally won at flossing every day, I tell you what, it was that much more motivating for me to become consistent in a new area. It's like now I notice that when I don't, I notice that even with like my exercise routine, if I feel more overwhelmed, if I feel so overwhelmed to where I don't stick to my exercise routine, I often feel more overwhelmed to not stick to my work schedule routine either. And I find that my laziness from one area will bleed over into another area. When I'm lazy in working out, I'm lazy at work. But when I decide to work out regardless of how I feel, I end up feeling more productive and more effective in my work. I end up doing more with less time when I'm consistent in a completely different area of my life. See, you're able to bleed that consistency over, but because what happens is you become this person of habitual consistency, and it makes you a leader who is consistent. Because at the end of the day, leadership is our role, but the person who we are is what we build outside of that role. Now, let's talk about one last idea, and that is sustaining momentum and long-term consistency. See, the biggest takeaway from this episode should be that consistency is a mindset and it's a choice. It's a decision. It's choosing to be illogical at times because of the fact that you chose a path and you're going to stick with it no matter what. Whatever time frame you had in mind of seeing results, you should probably double it or even triple it because it's going to take longer than you anticipate. This is why you really need to make sure that your beginning motivation, what's motivating you at the beginning, is strong and pure before you start. You want to make sure that all of your reasons of why you're going to do this, knowing why you're doing what you're doing, is legit, because you're going to need to stay longer than you think. And you have to set your mind preemptively of what you want to do. You try not to be rash in declaring something on a whim or on a feeling. You need to really consider the results. You need to really consider the costs and think critically about what it is you believe will be good and effective. And sometimes it boils down to integrity, and sometimes it boils down to sustainability. And if you know yourself and you know that maybe you're setting a consistency goal that's too high for you, be reasonable, because you want to be able to be consistent no matter what. And once you start, no matter what, consider the cost beforehand and then simply decide to commit. Don't give up, but push through relentlessly and you will see results. You know, it makes me think about this last part I want to share is with the church that I planted, Gravetop Church. I love my church. It is the best church I've ever been to. And I know that that's biased, but in this year right now that we're in is the first year to where it has been seemingly sustainable. What I mean by that, I mean sustainable in our attendance, in our finances, sustainable in the metrics that make up church. It's the very first year. We're in our 6th year. I thought maybe it would take off in 2 years. We're in the 6th year, and I'm finally seeing the light to where now I'm able to enjoy the fruits of my labor by seeing the fruitfulness of it, the growth of the church. And I'll tell you what, that there's times right before this moment, right before this year, I had the doubts so heavily that I thought maybe this is the time to just give up. It's been 5 years. Maybe I do need to just call it quits. Maybe this isn't working, and it is really time for me to just pack it up and move on to something else. Literally, the very next year of experiencing what I was longing for, and I was this close to giving up. There's so many moments where I would think that year after year, and then if I just was able to endure, I was able to endure and be consistent, even though I was preparing 5 hours of prepared content to share a message with 3 people. Hey, those 3 people are amazing. Love them. So glad that their souls were edified. But you're talking about a whole week long of preparing and trying to do all the work that comes from ministry, and then to have no one show up. I mean, that is hard. And to know that enduring and consistently showing up, consistently being there and doing the work, and now I'm seeing the numbers, the metrics that I want to see for something that I started. You have to understand that it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time for what you're starting. But if you endure and be consistent, don't give up, you will see the great results. You will see something happen. You just have to be understanding that it's going to take a great level of consistency. Now, with that being said, let's end with 3 takeaways. Number 1, grade your level of consistency on a scale of 1 to 10. And then ask your team to grade your consistency on a scale of 1 to 10. That way you can get a more surmisable idea of what level of consistency you're at. Number 2, examine your personal life and choose one habit to keep so that you can start practicing this bleed over concept of consistency. Number 3, reflect on where you're at in your leadership right now and honestly and prayerfully ask yourself whether or not you need to quit something or be steadfast and consistent in it. All that being said, I hope that today was edifying to your leadership. I hope that it made a difference in your life. Could you do me a favor? Can you leave a rating and review to this episode, to this podcast? It really helped me out and help others be able to see this podcast in their feed. Until next time, have a great life.